And another data point that was coming through quite strongly was a possibility of a chain reaction economic collapse in and around this election, kind of similar to what we saw with in 2008 with Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers and some of the brokerage houses and insurance companies kind of going bankrupt at that time. And so this suggests a pretty nasty campaign involving a lot of, big tech surveillance and or manipulation. That was one major theme that was quite strong in this. Another thing that we were seeing was some kind of standoff event in a prominent location. And we don't really know what this is. Again, this suggests that results may be contested in some kind of way. We're not sure whether this is a military standoff or a political standoff, but it seems to be that there's a building with people inside and they don't seem to want to leave.
There's fear there amongst them.
Not fear. Fear wasn't really strictly a big theme, but it was almost like a group of people don't want to leave a location.
Hmm.
And yeah. And so again, in postulating, you look at the data and you try to figure out what that means.
Wow.
And so again, this suggests a contested kind of result that the way in which an election is normally established is maybe not going to happen, or maybe take some time, more time than it would normally take. We're also seeing the possibility of having some kind of international standoff in and around this time. That kind of makes sense if the U.S. political situation is unstable. That will often embolden bad actors. So we're seeing that. We're not sure where that's happening, but it could be happening in any number of locations. And another data point that was coming through quite strongly was a possibility of a chain reaction economic collapse in and around this election, kind of similar to what we saw with in 2008 with Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers and some of the brokerage houses and insurance companies kind of going bankrupt at that time. So those are some of the major themes that we were seeing during this election time period. Within remote viewing, this is one of the biggest and most valuable tools of remote viewing. It is sometimes what doesn't show up in the data work. So there's a lot of things that we didn't see in this, and that can be as useful as anything else. So not seeing any serious pandemic situations, no big storms or accidents or environmental catastrophes. There's
Wow.
no earthquakes.
Another good
There's
one.
no solar flares. There's no serious terrorism. There's no assassinations. There's no major health issues with any of the candidates. There's no major foreign cyber attacks, and there's no electrical grid failure. But usually when there's a big issue that comes up, it's in the data somewhere, at least as one or two data points.
Sure.
So I would say you may get a solar flare, but it's not going to be something that really affects society as a background story of this election. It won't impact the election, is what I guess I'm saying. There may be terrorism in some other country, or there may be a U.S. something attacked in some other country, but it won't really be impacting the election or changing the outcome or becoming an issue, really.
So
So
just to underline that, the data will show you everything you need to know that's pertinent to the Q, the question you asked.
yeah,
If there was going to be an assassination, something that would interrupt the election, throw it in any way at all, that would be up in the data, and you would have seen that. This is where
exactly.
the power of the remote viewing lies.
Yeah. In terms of the biggest surprise that we're seeing in this, I would have to say it would be the standoff, um, or the economic collapse in terms of big issues that are going to get involved.
Right. There's a lot of talk about this election being the last election. You would have heard that. Something huge is going to happen. So, in a way, your data's suggesting that there's nothing really to suggest that.
No, that theme is not in the work. Yeah, that this is going to be the last election. That's all I can say on that, really.
Mm. And you've got an image of Kamala Harris. Am I saying it right?
Yeah. One of our remote viewers on the team drew a face that looks almost identical to Kamala Harris. So
It's certainly not
yeah.
the other guy, anyway.
Yeah, no, that's not necessarily pointing to the winner. That's some data that we got as part of this story. So, yeah, the election is such a charged thing that I didn't want to try to predict the winner because the level of stress on that is too high.
That's right.
We just are looking for the entire story of what's going on around the entire scene to see if there's any surprises. Yeah. So the final stage, the final phase of the analysis within remote viewing is to actually do what's called a postulate. So you actually try to nail it down to a few words or one sentence as to what's going on. And so in terms of the Beirut explosion, it was pretty easy to say that, this is just going to be a large explosion. In this case, there's so much data that we narrow it down to what could if this was going to be a headline in a newspaper, what would it say? And so I have three potential postulates here as to what could be going on here. Trump wins, but Biden refuses to leave the White House.
Wow.
That's one potential scenario that fits all this data.
Wow.
Another postulate is Harris wins, but Trump supporters siege the White House. And the last one is there's an unresolved situation with an unprecedented standoff in Congress.
Ouch.
When you're working with a team, people may have different postulates and they try to argue for their own case, and people kind of shoot it down or support it. And so there's a little bit of a debate that goes on, surrounding all the data in a real live project. So you always have a trade-off with the amount of time that you've got. We could have gone back and done more follow-on different parts of this data and really delved into certain sub-stories, but it's really a question of how much time you have. We've all got other projects going on, other remote viewing projects. We've got clients and things like that. So
if you have books or links to give us, we'll include those below the video.
Sure, yeah, I can be found at standardremoteviewing.com. I have a few projects on there, and
do you take students at the moment?
I do. I have an online course. Certainly, people can contact me if they want to know more. Yeah. I would just say remote viewing is a great, really, really powerful personal improvement tool. I would say it's probably the best I've seen, which is why I continue to do it. You've got to use it as one tool of many. You have to use your own judgment. Your remote viewing can also almost be like, the one tool that gets you over the hill to understanding something. You want to use it with the rest of your logic and discretion and judgment. Yeah.
This episode has so much content in it that it'll take a while to digest. And we hope to have you on again.
Yeah, great.
Definitely after the election, and that would be pretty cool.
Be interesting, yeah.